Did you know? The Indian Constitution is the longest constitution in the world with 470 articles. But here's the thing, you don't need to memorize all of them. What you need to know are the articles that actually define your rights, your freedoms, and how India works as a democracy. In the next 10 minutes, we are breaking down the 6 most important articles you'll see in exams, interviews, and real life. Whether you are preparing for UPSC, law school, or just want to understand your country better, this video is your shortcut to constitutional wisdom. Let's go. Before we jump into the articles themselves, let's understand why we are even talking about this. See, the Constitution isn't just some dusty old document sitting in a museum. It's the rulebook for how 1.4 billion Indians live together. Every time you vote, every time you speak freely, every time you practice your religion, that's the Constitution working in real time. The problem is, students often try to memorize articles without understanding their actual impact. You read Article 14 says equality, and your brain shuts down. But when you understand that Article 14 is why a beggar can take the Prime Minister to court if treated unfairly, suddenly it clicks. The 6 articles we are covering today are the foundation of Indian democracy. They define your fundamental rights, protect your freedom, and establish how our government actually functions. These articles have shaped major Supreme Court judgments, changed policies, and created precedents that affect you directly. Think of the Constitution as the motherboard of a computer. These articles are the essential chips that make everything else work. Without them, the entire system falls apart. So buckle up, because understanding these articles means understanding India itself. Let's start with Article 14. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws. Simple sentence, massive impact. Here's what it means in plain English. Nobody, and we mean nobody, gets special treatment from the government just because of who they are. The Prime Minister, a farmer, a rickshaw puller, a billionaire, everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. If the government makes a law, it has to apply equally to everyone. Now, you might wonder, doesn't the government already do this? Not always. Before independence, the colonial government literally had different laws for British people and Indian people. Article 14 ended that discrimination. But here's where it gets interesting. Article 14 doesn't mean all laws treat everyone identically. It means laws can't discriminate unreasonably. For example, there's an age limit for voting, 18 years. Is that discrimination? No, because there's a reasonable basis for it. Your age determines your maturity for voting decisions. The Supreme Court has used Article 14 countless times to strike down unfair laws. When the government tried to deny benefits to certain groups, the court has said, sorry, violates Article 14. When private companies discriminate in hiring based on religion or caste, courts have invoked Article 14 principles. This is why if you get a fine for breaking traffic rules, and your politician friend also breaks the same rule, you can both be fined equally. That's Article 14 in action. Article 21 is simple but profound. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. On the surface, it just means nobody can kill you or imprison you unless there's a proper legal process. But the Supreme Court has expanded this article to mean so much more. It's basically the umbrella under which dozens of your fundamental rights live. Through creative interpretation, the courts have derived rights from Article 21 that aren't even explicitly written. The right to privacy. That comes from Article 21. The right to a dignified life. Article 21. The right to free education. Article 21. The right to clean air and water. Article 21. It's like a magical article that keeps giving rights. Let me give you real examples. When a case came about whether a widow should have the right to property, the court said Article 21 protects that. When someone was denied medical treatment in jail, Article 21 protected them. When a person's reputation was damaged without a fair hearing, Article 21 provided justice. The key phrase is procedure established by law. This means if the government wants to restrict your freedom, they can't just do it randomly. There must be a law, and they must follow that law properly. For instance, police can't arrest you without a proper procedure. They need reasonable suspicion, they need to follow legal steps, they need to inform you of your rights. Article 21 is probably the most important article because it protects your very existence and freedom. Everything else flows from this. Now let's talk about Articles 25 through 28, which collectively protect your right to practice religion freely. Article 25 says, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice and propagate religion. This is India's promise to be a secular nation. You can believe what you want, practice what you want, and even convince others about your beliefs. But, and this is important, Article 25 also says the government can place reasonable restrictions in the interest of public order, morality, and health. So you can't do something that harms others in the name of religion. Article 26 protects your right to manage religious affairs. If you are part of a religious group, the community can manage its properties, charities, and religious institutions without government interference. Article 27 says you can't be forced to pay taxes to support a religion. If you are an atheist, you shouldn't be forced to fund religious activities through your taxes. Article 28 is crucial for students. It says that in educational institutions receiving government funding, no one can be forced to take part in religious instruction if they don't want to. So a government school can't force a Christian child to attend Hindu prayers, or a Hindu child to attend Islamic classes. These articles protect religious minorities and ensure India isn't a theocracy where one religion dominates. A Muslim can open a mosque, a Christian can build a church, a Sikh can wear a turban, all with full constitutional protection. The Supreme Court has used these articles to allow hijabs in schools, protect the right to convert religions, and ensure fair treatment of minority religions. Article 44 is short and significant. The state shall endeavour to provide a uniform civil code for the citizens throughout the territory of India. Notice the word endeavour, it means the government should try, but it's not mandatory. This article suggests that someday, all Indians should follow the same civil laws regarding marriage, inheritance, divorce, and adoption, regardless of religion. Currently, India has different personal laws for different religions. Muslims follow Muslim personal law, Hindus follow Hindu personal law, Christians follow Christian laws. This has been a contentious debate. Some say this respects religious diversity, others argue it's unequal. Goa is the only state with a uniform civil code, and interestingly, it was implemented during Portuguese rule. The article remains aspirational, the government is trying, but slowly. Now, let's talk about Article 370. This is one of the most debated articles in Indian politics. Article 370 gave Jammu and Kashmir a special status within India. Kashmir had its own constitution, its own flag, its own laws on property and citizenship. Article 370 was a temporary provision, literally meant to be temporary. It was supposed to be reviewed and removed when the situation stabilized. For 70 years, it remained. In 2019, the government invoked Article 368 to revoke Article 370 and integrate Kashmir fully into India. This was huge. It meant Kashmir now follows the same laws as India. Outsiders can now buy property there. The state's special autonomy ended. Article 370 is important because it shows how the constitution can be amended, how special provisions work, and how India's relationship with different regions evolves. Whether you think revoking it was right or wrong, understanding what it was matters. Finally, let's talk about Article 368, Power of Parliament to amend the Constitution and procedure therefore. Here's a fascinating fact: the Constitution isn't unchangeable. It can be amended. But the process is deliberately difficult to prevent random changes. Article 368 outlines how amendments happen. First, an amendment bill must be introduced in Parliament. Second, it must pass both houses with a specific majority, usually a simple majority, meaning more than 50% of members present and voting. But, and here's the critical part, some amendments require a higher threshold. If you are amending fundamental rights or affecting the basic structure of the Constitution, you need a two-thirds majority in both houses and approval from half the states. This is intentionally hard. Since 1950, India has amended the Constitution 105 times. Some amendments expanded rights, some clarified procedures, and some changed major structures. For example, the 44th Amendment changed the right to property from a fundamental right to a constitutional right. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. The 73rd and 74th Amendments introduced local government bodies like panchayats and municipalities. The Supreme Court has ruled that even Article 368 has limits. You cannot amend the Constitution to destroy its basic structure. What's the basic structure? Democracy, secularism, equality, judicial review. These are non-negotiable. So when the government tried to extend its term or remove judicial review, courts have stopped it, citing the basic structure doctrine derived from Article 368. This article essentially protects the Constitution from being destroyed by those in power while allowing it to evolve with society. So there you have it, 6 articles that form the backbone of Indian democracy. Article 14 ensures you are treated equally. Article 21 protects your very existence and freedom. Articles 25 to 28 guarantee religious liberty. Article 44 dreams of uniform civil laws. Article 370 showed India's flexibility with regions, and Article 368 allows the Constitution to evolve without being destroyed. These aren't just exam topics. They're the reasons you can speak freely, believe what you want, and challenge the government in court. Understanding these articles means understanding your own power as an Indian citizen. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below telling us which article surprised you the most or which one you want us to dive deeper into. Don't forget to like this video if it helped you, subscribe for more constitution breakdowns, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching.